The Galactic Council dared to torture humanity's most loyal companion, a dog. For this unforgivable sin, Earth's mighty fleets erupted from ancient slumber, ravaging the stars with a vengeance not seen in eons. Jerry Davis, grizzled veteran space marine, watched the sprawling Galactic Council space station loom before his outdated patrol ship. He clenched his jaw, fingers tightening around the yoke as he prepared to dock. The Council's urgent summons rang in his mind, a cryptic message that left more questions than answers. Disembarking, he strode through bustling, alien-filled corridors, the gravity of his purpose steeling his resolve. The Council chamber doors yawned open, a grim-faced attendant ushering him inside. Jerry froze. The full assembly glared down at him in the flesh, a rare sight for a lone human. Nox, the burly Pandronian, spoke first. Bicarian pirates had stolen the Eldritch Orb, an ancient universe-destroying weapon. The Spectre recovery team failed. Only Jerry's unaugmented human senses could sniff out the cloaked Tekar captain and locate the orb. The universe's fate rested on his shoulders alone, a fact that sent chills down Jerry's spine. Earth's mighty fleets had already sacrificed much to protect the weak, naive council races. Now, humanity's greatest champion would risk everything once more, plunging into the abyss to prevent the unraveling of reality itself. One man against impossible odds. For Earth, for existence. Jerry met Nox's gaze, a cocky grin spreading across his lips. "I thought you'd never ask." The Council armory was a treasure trove of bleeding-edge tech, and they spared no expense outfitting Jerry for this mission. His new stealth ship was a sleek beast, packed with the latest cloaking, jamming, and EW capabilities. It handled like a dream as he punched the coordinates for the Bikari ship's last known position and throttled up the FTL drive. Halfway there, a priority message pinged on the quantum entanglement communicator. It was Nox. Jerry's blood ran cold as he read the update. The Bikari had found the orb and already begun the activation sequence. In 10 hours, the universe itself would start unraveling at the seams. Unless Jerry could get to the orb first and shut it down with the quantum disruptor the eggheads had cooked up. Jerry gritted his teeth as his ship dropped out of FTL in the Zborok system, and flew right into the kill zone of an entire squadron of Bikari fighters, weapons hot and hungry for blood. He wrenched the stick hard, juking and twisting, but the pirates were already pummeling his shields. Alarms shrieked as the ship bucked and shuddered under the onslaught. Fucking Bikari moles in the Council had to be. They'd blown the op before it even started. Jerry snarled, hands flying over the console as he rerouted power from the failing cloak to weapons and countermeasures. The cockpit hatch hissed open, and he lunged for the locker, snatching a hard-shell combat EVA suit and a thruster pack. He'd barely sealed his helmet when a lucky shot holed the reactor and his whole damn ship vanished in a maelstrom of light and shrapnel. Tumbling, lost in space, Jerry fought down the rising gorge in his throat. He flipped and fired the thrusters, killing his spin. There. The Bikari mothership, a distant hulk against the stars, its fighters buzzing around his grave like flies. They thought him dead. Their mistake. Jerry punched it, streaking towards the pirate ship, juking and weaving through the gauntlet of their picket screen. The mothership loomed, and he zeroed in on the innocuous maintenance hatch near the engine block. At the last second, he cut thrust and triggered the mag grapplers. The jolt nearly ripped his arms from their sockets as he slammed into the ship's armored hide. Jaw clenched, muscles burning, he hauled the manual release and dragged himself into the airlock. As it cycled, he checked his wrist display with a sinking heart. 8 hours left until the end of everything. He was in, but the mission had barely begun. Jerry crept through the Bikari ship's dingy maintenance corridors, pulse pounding in his ears. He paused to check the schematics included in the mission brief, committing the layout to memory. There. The faint, pungent musk of the Tekar captain wafted through the passageways, growing stronger as Jerry descended level by level, ducking into alcoves to avoid the tramp of pirate boots on metal grating. Intrigued, Jerry popped the casing off the locking mechanism and deftly rewired it. The hatch hissed open, and he slipped through, hugging the shadows. A force field shimmered at the far end of the chamber, and behind it, Her golden retriever lay on the deck, watching him with knowing eyes that held far too much intelligence for any normal dog. Jagged scars marred its once beautiful coat, and one hind leg had been replaced with a biomechanical prosthetic. Cold fury suffused Jerry's veins as the awful realization crashed over him. This dog, this poor, beautiful creature, had been vivisected and experimented on by the fucking Galactic Council. And suddenly, with terrible clarity, he understood why those council bastards had chosen him and him alone for this mission, why they'd sent him in with no backup, on a stealth ship packed with their latest tech. They didn't just need his skills, they needed his bleeding heart, because they knew that once a human saw an animal in distress, that human would storm the gates of hell itself to save it. The retriever let out an urgent bark, jerking its muzzle towards a monitor on the cell wall. Jerry's blood turned to ice in his veins. On screen, the Bikari captain stood on the bridge with his officers, the eldritch orb pulsing ominously between them. The chrono counting down its firing sequence read 45 minutes. 3/4 of a fucking hour until the universe was nothing but an unraveled thread. Jerry's fingers flew over the force field controls, a triumphant grin spreading across his face as the barrier fizzled and died. The retriever bounded out, tail wagging, and pressed its scarred muzzle into Jerry's palm. He scratched behind its ears, a lump forming in his throat. "Those council bastards have a lot to answer for, boy." A chime from his HUD interrupted the moment. Incoming transmission on the quantum-entangled channel. Jerry's eyes narrowed as Knox's craggy visage appeared, the councillor looking uncharacteristically hesitant. "Davis, there's something you should know about your mission. Jerry cut the feed with an angry swipe, jaw clenched. Whatever web of lies the council had spun to justify their actions could wait. The universe teetered on the brink of annihilation. That was all that mattered now. He pulled up the ship's schematics, scanning for the armory. There, 2 decks up. "All right, boy," he said, checking the charge on his plasma rifle. "Let's gear up and finish this." The unlikely duo crept through the bowels of the ship, hugging the shadows. Jerry's heart hammered against his ribs as they slipped past a group of Bikari thugs, their guttural laughter echoing off the bulkheads. At last, they reached the armory. The door lock proved no match for Jerry's hacking skills. Inside, the walls were lined with racks of weapons. Plasma rifles, concussion grenades, even a few phased plasma pulse rifles in the 40-watt range. Jerry armed himself to the teeth, stuffing his pack and pockets until he bristled like a porcupine. A soft woof drew his attention. The retriever stood next to an open locker, a sleek tactical vest dangling from its jaws. Jerry took it, amazed. The vest had clearly been tailor-made for the dog, its composite weave molded to fit the retriever's augmented frame. As he helped the dog don the armor, something else in the locker caught Jerry's eye. A dull metallic cylinder, etched with alien script. His breath caught. A Bikari wormhole generator. Compact, portable, and powerful enough to tear a ship to atoms. The beginnings of a desperate plan started to coalesce in his mind. Jerry snatched up the generator and sprinted for the upper decks, the retriever loping at his side. The schematic showed a small communications relay station nearby, unmanned. Perfect. Inside the cramped relay station, Jerry worked feverishly, assembling a crude dead man switch from spare parts. He wired it to the wormhole generator, fingers flying over the unfamiliar Bikari controls, then synced the whole contraption to his armor's biosensors. His heart pounded as he double-checked his handiwork. Satisfied, he sucked in a breath and opened a ship-wide channel. "Attention, Bikari scum. This is Space Marine Jerry Davis of Earth. I have a wormhole generator hooked up to a dead man's switch. If I die, it'll activate and tear your ship apart. Hand over the orb and prepare to surrender." Klaxons blared as the Bikari traced his signal, boots pounding towards the relay station, but Jerry was already moving, bounding towards the bridge with the retriever at his heels, a fierce grin on his face. His ace in the hole was complete, now to play it for all it was worth. Jerry's boots pounded the deck as he raced towards the bridge, the retriever bounding ahead. Blaster fire from pursuing pirates peppered the bulkheads. His lungs burned, muscles screaming, but he pushed on. Had to reach the orb, had to shut it down. The countdown hit 10 minutes as they skidded to a halt before the sealed bridge doors. Jerry swore, slamming a fist against the unyielding metal. The dog whined, then sniffed along the edges, pausing at a specific point. It reared back and slammed its biomechanical hind leg into the door with a sickening crunch. Jerry gaped as the metal crumpled like tissue paper, and the doors groaned open. The dog shot him a look that said, "What are you waiting for?" Jerry shook his head. No time to marvel at Galactic Council engineering. They burst onto the bridge, weapons raised, and found themselves staring down the barrels of a dozen Bikari rifles. The Tekar captain stood at the center of the pack, cradling the ominously glowing orb. His mandibles clacked as he let out a grating laugh. "You're too late, human," he gloated. "The orb's firing sequence is already initiated. In minutes this reality will dissolve into the primordial chaos from whence it came." Jerry leveled his rifle at the captain's head, finger tightening on the trigger. "Guess I'll have to take my chances with the next universe then. I'll still stop you." A feral grin spread across Jerry's face. He tapped a command into his HUD, activating his armor's external speakers. A high-pitched whistle blasted from the speakers, a frequency beyond human hearing. Instantly, a concealed door at the rear of the bridge slid open with a hiss. Out marched a dozen golden retrievers, moving in eerie unison, their augmented bodies bristling with implants. Each bore the same horrific scars as Jerry's newfound companion. The Bikari barely had time to screech in shock before the dogs were upon them, a whirlwind of gnashing teeth and flashing metal. Pirates fell in sprays of ichor, the retrievers moving with brutal, augmented efficiency. In the chaos, Jerry lunged for the orb, but the Tekar captain blocked him, talons outstretched. They crashed to the deck, grappling furiously, rolling end over end as the countdown ticked inexorably towards 0. Jerry caught a glimpse of the dogs, now riddled with blaster burns but still fighting savagely. His heart swelled with fierce pride, even as the captain's talons dug into his flesh. With a desperate heave, he wrenched the orb from the Bikari's grasp and staggered to his feet. The quantum disruptor glinted in his hand as he raised it high, prepared to plunge it into the orb's swirling depths. The universe held its breath. Jerry hesitated, suddenly uncertain. Could he really destroy an entire reality to save his own? That instant of vulnerability was all the Tekar needed. A blast from his sidearm sent the disruptor flying from Jerry's grip. It skittered across the deck, fetching up against the far bulkhead with a clatter that sounded like the tolling of a funeral bell. Jerry and the captain stared at each other in mute horror. The countdown flashed red, 10 seconds remaining. As one, they scrambled to their feet and sprinted for the disruptor, hearts pounding, the universe's fate hanging in the balance. Jerry threw himself forward in a frantic dive, fingertips straining for the device. The Tekar crashed into him in a tangle of limbs. They struggled desperately, the disruptor always just out of reach, as the final seconds bled away. The retriever slammed into the Tekar captain in a whirlwind of fur and metal, sending them both crashing to the deck. Limbs flailed as they grappled, the dog's jaws snapping at the captain's throat. Jerry seized his chance and dove for the disruptor. His fingers closed around the grip and he rolled to his feet, whirling to plunge it into the orb's heart. Too slow. The captain heaved the retriever off and lunged, tackling Jerry from behind. The disruptor and orb flew from his grasp, clattering across the deck. Quick as a flash, the retriever leapt and snatched the disruptor from the air, but the orb tumbled over the railing, plummeting to the lower level. Jerry and the captain sprinted for the stairs, trading blows as the countdown ticked into its final minute. They hit the lower deck and spotted the orb pulsing malevolently against a console. As one, they charged. They crashed together as they reached the orb, hands scrabbling for purchase. They strained against each other with desperate strength, neither giving an inch. Jerry risked a glance at the chrono, 30 seconds. The retriever bounded down the stairs behind them, disruptor clutched in its jaws. It circled the struggling pair, searching for an opening, but they were too tightly entangled. Blaster fire rained down from above, as the remaining Baikari pirates, having finished off the other dogs, took aim at Jerry and his companion. The retriever yelped as a bolt found its mark, sending it tumbling, the disruptor skittering from its grasp. Pinned by the barrage, still deadlocked with the captain over the orb, Jerry felt a deep calm settle over him. So this was how it ended. He closed his eyes, waiting for oblivion. The world exploded. Jerry's eyes snapped open as the ship lurched violently beneath him. Alarms shrieked and emergency lights strobed as a massive hole was torn in the bridge ceiling. Beyond the ragged edges, a shimmering blue wormhole crackled. For a split second, Jerry thought his dead man's switch had activated, but his HUD showed his vitals still strong. Then what? A deafening roar split the air as an immense armored shape dropped through the portal. It rose to its full height, towering a good 12 feet, the dim light playing over ridged gunmetal plates. The giant leveled a huge plasma cannon at the pirates, and a booming voice issued from external speakers. Earth sends its regards. Behind the first armored Titan, dozens more poured through the wormhole, then hundreds, dropping to the deck with earth-shaking impact. The Baikari opened fire, but their plasma bolts splashed harmlessly off the giant's armor. The leader strode through the firestorm, reached down and casually plucked the orb from Jerry and the captain's grasps with one massive hand. "Sorry to cut it so close, Space Marine Davis," the giant rumbled, "but the cavalry has arrived." As the armored Titans made quick work of the remaining Baikari pirates, Jerry staggered to his feet, his mind reeling from the sudden turn of events. The towering warrior who had spoken earlier strode over, the orb clutched in one massive gauntlet. He held it out to Jerry, who took it with shaking hands. Jerry cast about frantically for the quantum disruptor, finally spotting it lying against the far bulkhead. He snatched it up and slammed it home into the orb's pulsing core. The sickly glow emanating from the artifact flickered and died, the countdown grinding to a halt with mere seconds to spare. Jerry heaved a shuddering sigh of relief, his knees nearly buckling. He turned to face his rescuer, 1,000 questions burning on his tongue. "Not that I'm ungrateful," he said, "but who the hell are you guys?" The giant reached up and disengaged his helmet with a hiss of pneumatics, revealing a craggy, battle-scarred human face. Cold blue eyes regarded Jerry from beneath heavy brows. "Captain Marcus Valeron," the man said, his voice a low rumble. "Earth Defense Force Omega Division. We're the ones the Galactic Council fears even more than you Space Marines." Jerry's eyes narrowed. "I thought all Earth forces were under Council command. How have you stayed hidden all this time?" Valoran's smile held no mirth. "We didn't. We simply refused to play their game. When they tried to bring us to heel, we showed them why our ancestors were once considered the most dangerous beings in the galaxy." He gestured to his armor, a marvel of technology that made Jerry's bleeding-edge Space Marine kit look like a child's toy. "This is what we've been working on while the Council kept us sidelined with busy work like chasing pirates." Jerry nodded slowly, pieces falling into place. "And you picked now to come out of the shadows because of them." Valoran pointed to the modified golden retrievers who had gathered around Jerry's wounded companion, whining and nosing at him in concern. "The Council's cruelty towards other species is well documented, but torturing and weaponizing dogs? That's a new low even for them. It cannot stand. Jerry's face hardened, a cold fury igniting in his gut. "Damn right it can't." He knelt and gently scooped up his injured retriever, cradling the dog against his chest. The retriever licked his face weakly, tail thumping once. Jerry's throat tightened. "When we get back to Earth, I'm going to have some choice words for the Council. They wanted me to be their errand boy, but instead, they've unleashed a reckoning on themselves." Valoran clapped him on the shoulder, the impact nearly staggering Jerry. "That's the spirit, Marine. Come on, let's get you and your friend here patched up." His blue eyes glittered, chips of ice in his weathered face. "We've got a galaxy to remind who's really in charge." The chamber doors slammed shut behind Jerry with a resounding boom that echoed through the marble halls. Valoran clapped a hand on his shoulder, his craggy face split by a fierce grin. "Damn, Marine, You sure know how to make an exit. Jerry allowed himself a small smile, the adrenaline still singing in his veins. I meant every word. The Council's days of jerking Earth around are over. It's time we took our rightful place at the head of the galactic table. The retriever nudged Jerry's hand with its nose, and he knelt to scratch behind its ears. The dog's fur was thick and healthy, all traces of its ordeal erased by the miracles of Omega Division medical science. Jerry's heart swelled with gratitude and pride. This brave canine had been through hell, but it had never wavered in its loyalty, just like humanity itself. He straightened, his jaw set with determination. So what's our next move, Captain? Valeron's eyes glinted. Now we consolidate our position. The Council races may grumble, but they're too fractured to present a united front. We'll reach out to potential allies, species who've also chafed under the Council's yoke. The Zintari, the Groknar, maybe even the Bikeri if they're feeling suitably chastened. Jerry nodded. And in the meantime, we build up our forces, expand our fleets, establish bases on key worlds, make it clear that any move against us will be met with overwhelming force. Exactly. Valeron started down the corridor, his armored boots ringing on the polished stone. But that's just the beginning. The galaxy's a big place, full of wonders and dangers beyond imagining. With the resources of a unified Earth behind us, there's nothing we can't achieve. He paused, turning to face Jerry. And we're going to need men like you at the forefront, Davis. Men of principle who understand what it means to fight for something greater than themselves. The Council wanted a lapdog, but instead they got a wolf, and now the pack is coming. Jerry felt a shiver run down his spine, a sense of destiny welling up inside him. He looked down at the retriever by his side, its eyes shining with unconditional trust and love. In that moment, he knew with absolute certainty that he would die for this dog, for his planet, for his species. Because that was what it meant to be human. To stand against the darkness, no matter the odds, to forge a future in the stars with the unbreakable bonds of loyalty and sacrifice. Earth had slumbered long enough. Now at last it was time to awaken, time to show the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of. Valeron was right. The pack was coming. And heaven help anyone who stood in their way. The ground heaved beneath Jerry's feet as the explosion ripped through the landing pad, hurling him to the ferrocrete in a bone-jarring impact. Ears ringing, vision swimming, he pushed himself to his hands and knees, shaking his head to clear the fog. All around him, Omega Division soldiers staggered and stumbled, disoriented by the blast. A high-pitched whine filled the air, growing louder by the second. Jerry looked up, squinting against the glare of Helios's twin suns, as a swarm of Galactic Council attack drones descended upon them, energy weapons spitting searing bolts of plasma. The soldiers rallied, bringing their rifles to bear and returning fire, but the drones' shields shimmered and held, absorbing the hits with ease. A flicker of movement caught Jerry's eye. A Pandronian stealth ship, its mirror-black hull reflecting the chaos below, shimmered into view directly above them. Its cockpit canopy depolarized, revealing the sneering face of Councillor Knox. "Did you really think we'd let you leave with the orb, human?" Knox's voice boomed from the ship's external speakers, dripping with contempt. "Hand it over, and maybe we'll let you live to be the Council's lapdogs again." Jerry gritted his teeth, anger surging through his veins like molten steel. He staggered to his feet, ignoring the stabbing pain in his ribs, as his retriever companion whined in concern beside him. All around, Omega Division soldiers fell one by one, the drones' relentless onslaught tearing through their armor like tissue paper. Jerry's gaze flicked from the advancing drones to Knox's ship, hovering mockingly above, a cruel smile playing about the Pandronian's lipless mouth. In that instant, he knew what he had to do. "Valeron," he barked into his comm, his voice raw with desperation and grim resolve. "Initiate Operation Oathbreaker." Silence hung on the line for a moment, heavy with the weight of the unthinkable. Then Valeron's voice crackled in his ear, rough with emotion. "Understood, Marine. It's been an honor." Jerry turned to his retriever, the loyal companion who had been by his side through hell and back. He knelt, looking the dog square in its two intelligent eyes, and laid a hand on its armored flank. "Get to the shuttle, boy," he said, his voice cracking. "Get out of here. Humanity will need good soldiers like you in the fight to come." The retriever whined, low and mournful, and licked Jerry's face with a tongue that was far too smooth and supple to be anything nature had ever intended. But it obeyed, turning and bounding up the shuttle's ramp on powerful, augmented legs. Jerry watched him go, a sad smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Then he turned back to the oncoming drones, a primed plasma grenade gripped tight in each fist. Above, Nox's ship thrummed with building power as its main cannon began to cycle up, the air crackling with barely contained energies. Suddenly alarms blared across the Pandronian vessel, shrill and urgent. Nox's head snapped up, his eyes widening in shock and horrified realization as a dozen wormholes tore open in the sky around his ship. From each rippling portal, the angular prows of Earth's mighty warships emerged, the vanguard led by a gargantuan dreadnought that dwarfed Nox's craft like an elephant beside a mouse. The Earth fleet opened fire in a blistering salvo, the dreadnought's main battery spitting sun-bright lances of concentrated plasma. Nox's ship came apart like a cheap toy, its hull shredding and disintegrating under the onslaught. The Pandronian's final scream echoed across the comm channels, abruptly silenced as his craft vanished in a blinding fireball. On the ground, the Council drones froze in mid-air, twitching spasmodically before dropping to the ferrocrete like marionettes with their strings cut. Jerry watched with grim satisfaction as the Earth fleet descended from on high, dropships peeling away from the formation to land beside the battered Omega Division soldiers and take on the wounded. As the last of his men were evacuated, Jerry looked out over the burning ruins of the Council headquarters, once a gleaming monument to their power, now a smouldering testament to their hubris. "We warned you," he whispered, his voice hollow in the sudden stillness, "but you just couldn't resist one last betrayal." His armored fingers tightened on the plasma grenades, knuckles whitening within his gauntlets. "So be it. The Council's days are numbered. Humanity is coming for you, and hell's coming with us." With a final defiant roar, Jerry detonated the grenades. The world vanished in a searing flash of light and heat, the shockwave hurling him back into oblivion's waiting embrace. In orbit, the Earth fleet finished mopping up the last of the Council's automated defenses and vanished back through the wormholes as quickly as they had come. On the shuttle's viewport, the retriever pressed its scarred muzzle to the glass, a single mournful howl echoing across the stars as the wormholes snapped shut, leaving only silence in their wake. On the bridge of the dreadnought, Valeron stared at the comm screen, his knuckles white as he gripped the edge of the console. The transmission from Earth Command played again, each word driving a spike of cold dread deeper into his gut. "Herb is gone, Council infiltration. All available units on highest priority." He slammed a fist against the console, the plasteel buckling under the force of his rage. The retriever whined softly at his side, sensing his distress. Valeron reached down absently to scratch behind its ears, his mind racing. It had all been a ruse. The Council's surrender, their acquiescence to Earth's demands, nothing more than a smokescreen to buy time for their agents to steal back the orb. And like fools, humanity had fallen for it. Valeron's jaw clenched as he replayed the events of the past few hours in his mind. The triumphant return to Earth, the hero's welcome, the solemn ceremony inducting the retriever into the Omega Division's ranks. All of it rendered hollow by this new betrayal. He turned to face the dog, its golden coat gleaming under the bridge's harsh lights. "Looks like our work isn't done yet, boy," he said grimly. "We've got a galaxy to save." The retriever barked once, its augmented vocal cords transforming the sound into a deep, resonant growl that echoed through the bridge. If Valeron didn't know better, he'd swear it sounded like hooah. He keyed the shipwide comm, his voice booming through every deck and compartment of the mighty dreadnought. "Soldiers of Earth, hear me." On the screen surrounding him, he saw his troops pause in their duties, their eyes turning towards the nearest speaker. Techs looked up from their consoles, Marines halted in their gun drills. Pilots paused in their simulator pods, all waiting on his words. "The Council has played us for fools," Valeron continued, his voice hard as forged steel. "They used our honor, our mercy against us, manipulated us into lowering our guard so they could strike at our very heart." He paused, letting the words sink in, watching the faces of his soldiers shift from confusion to shock to simmering anger. Good. They'd need that fire in the battles to come. "But no more," he growled. "No more will we dance to the Council's tune. No more will we play by their rules. From this moment forward, we take the fight to them. We're going to hunt them down, take back what's ours, and make damn sure they never threaten our home again." A low rumble of agreement rolled through the assembled troops, building into a crescendo of shouted oaths and promises of vengeance. Valeron let it wash over him, feeling his own resolve harden into an unbreakable diamond. "We fight not just for Earth, but for every species the Council has ever wronged," he said, his voice rising above the din. "For every world they've plundered, every life they've destroyed in their quest for power. This is our chance to set things right, to forge a new path for the galaxy." He leaned forward, his eyes blazing with the fires of righteous fury. "It won't be easy. Some of us may not make it back. But I promise you this, we will fight to our last breath, and we will make the Council rue the day they ever dared to cross humanity." The retriever threw back its head and howled, the eerie sound echoing through the ship like the hunting cry of some primal beast. As if on cue, the assembled soldiers erupted into a roar of approval, a sound to shake the very heavens. "Now," Valeron said, his voice cutting through the noise like a plasma blade, "let's go kick some alien ass." As one, the soldiers of Earth saluted, their faces grim with purpose. The war for the fate of the galaxy had only just begun, but one thing was certain. The Council had sown the wind. Now they would reap the whirlwind. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.